Well, a little cheer for Ty. I heard that one. That was good. That's good. Thank you, Ty. We are in a message series right now where we are considering how we can offer a more generous welcome both to people and also, I'll say, a generous welcome to the work that God wants to do in our lives as well. So we're saying, what does it mean for us to do that, to have this more generous welcome for this? And as I've been thinking about, specifically about people and how to have a more generous welcome for people, I have been reading different books on things, and one author in particular a covenant person named Dr. Severson, she lives in Montecito. She wrote a really great thing that I read that says that churches are never unintentionally generously hospitable. So you don't just stumble into being welcoming. You can be unintentionally inhospitable, but you are never unintentionally hospitable. There has to be a decision made on our part by the church and by the people as far as how things look or how you're going to welcome people. There has to be an actual choice that gets made to do that, to be able to make that move, to be able to help people to do that. And I'll say every church can get a little bit better at that. Every person can actually get a little bit better at that. And that's why we're spending a little bit of time trying to think about this generous welcome. And we are talking about lots of different ways that we do that. And I will say, some of you are newer here than I am. I have been at Simi Covenant for 2.5 years. If you've only ever known me, then you are newer than I am, right? And if you are newer than I am, I would love to actually hear some of your observations. You can write that on that Connect card. I would love to hear, hey, these are ways that I felt really welcomed or something that worked. Or maybe if there's something that didn't work really great, I would still love to hear that. We want to get better because we want to have a more generous welcome. So make sure you give us some ideas for things that did or did not work, and you can write that on that Connect card, and you can just drop it in one of the baskets, either the front or back or online. You can fill that out for us online. Those are one of the ways that we can do that is just kind of working together to say what stuff is working. And if you have noticed something, we want to try to make that a bit better. I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I first came to Simi Covenant Church about 3 years ago. I came in sneakily, right? Because I was candidating, so I tried to keep a low profile. I was invited to come and worship here and get to know some of you, and that was the idea, was to talk a little bit with the search committee at the time. So that would have been fall of 2019. And as I came in, I actually ran into Pastor Roberto, who is the pastor of our sister church. There's a Spanish-speaking church that also meets here. They meet in the afternoon. And I actually had known Pastor Roberto from other events in the Covenant. And so I said hi to him, and I came in with him and sat down. But I will tell you that he is the only person who talked to me at that service. Ooh. I will say the search committee was trying to play it cool, right? They didn't want, you guys knew who was on the search committee. They didn't want to see that. But it raised some questions for me. I thought, is this going to be my place here? I wondered that. And I don't say that because I'm trying to make anybody feel bad. I'm just saying, hey, there can be times where even one person can make it through and not get greeted. And maybe that's the case. But it does raise that question for some people. Hey, what's going to happen to us? And I don't know if I've told that story here before. I have told some of you individually about that. And it was a question that I had. Am I going to be able to find my place here? And you have probably had that experience in places too, where you have come and said, am I going to be able to find my place here? The nice part is, I actually know a lot of you now, right? We know each other pretty well, and I know that it wasn't intentional, but that's what I'm saying, is that sometimes even in welcoming places, we can kind of unintentionally, to use the spiritual word, biff it, I guess, like to not really get it right. I think that I was a new church member who had some potential. Right? And so I would have wanted to be welcomed. So, you have had that experience too. You've gone to places, you've been a new student in a school, or you started a new job, and you wondered, hey, is this going to be my place here? You've probably also experienced the other way of being super generously welcomed. I don't know, whether it's going to a family reunion, and you showed up, and some people said, oh yeah, she's here, right? You get that cheer. Or you came back from being gone for a little while, and your mom made you your favorite dish. Makes you feel loved. Right? There are ways that we can feel really cared for. Somebody remembers your name, and we say, hey, this is my place. These are my people. They know what I like. They have done something to prepare to make it seem like they really want me to be here. And I think that is part of our generous welcome. That's what we want to do those things, and we want to do it intentionally. And I want that to be the case for you. If you're new here, or if you've been around a while, I've talked with people, I'll say, who have said, I've been around a while and I haven't been able to connect a lot with people. We want that to be a part of your experience. I love it here. I have lots of friends here, and I want that to be the case for you, that all of us would be able to say that we feel welcomed like God would want to welcome us. I will say, a person's experience of the welcome of the people of God is actually a part of our spiritual journey. The experience of people's welcome by the people of God is actually a part of our spiritual journey. Maybe you've experienced that yourself. That you'd say that I wanted to come back and learn more about God because I knew that people wanted me there. And it seems kind of silly in a way, right? We know that God's Spirit is at work in us and bringing us to grow spiritually, but we also want to say we want the people of God to kind of be working with God on those things and not working against it. And so the people of God, that welcome of feeling rightly welcomed by God's people, is going to be an important part of our faith journey. We want to encourage that in that direction. If you are new to church, you may wonder, you may think, I don't know if the Bible would actually push Christians toward being more welcoming. Maybe you've even experienced kind of the opposite from Christian people. You might wonder that, and I will say, I understand. I've experienced that kind of thing. Even in my life before I made a faith commitment, I had experienced both the good and bad. But what is interesting is that Scripture does push people toward loving others. I will say not every Christian is really good at holding this tension between having deeply held values and having this deep, radical welcome of people that are supposed to exemplify the Christian life, that we are supposed to hold our values strongly and yet to be able to have this radical welcome of people. The only person who's really done that really well was Jesus Christ. Nobody ever thought that Jesus was wishy-washy on what he believed. He held firmly to his convictions. And yet, he also radically welcomed people. The people felt like they had a place to be with him. That they said, oh, I know that he will welcome me in. I'm going to be changed when I interact with him. But I know that he's not just giving in to me. That's what we want to be like. That is the image for us in our lives as Christians as we seek to follow his example. And that is what New Testament writers also encourage us in. And at the end of the passage that Ty read a moment ago in Romans 15, we're going to focus on that one verse. We're going to focus on one particular verse in Romans 15:7. And like I say, at the end of what he said. Go ahead and put that one up there. So this is in ESV. I think in the version that Ty read, it said something like, accept one another. There are other versions that say something like, receive one another. The word that is accept or welcome is something like, kind of take somebody aside. Or you're making a special time of focus on that person. So I think the translation here, this is from ESV, of welcome is really good. And it says this, therefore welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you for the glory of God. Therefore welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you for the glory of God. So the Bible actually encourages Christians to be welcoming to other people. And we're going to get into a bit more of what that means. So the context of this, this was written by the Apostle Paul, who is a great thinker of the first century and an early Christian. And he's in the context of talking about some Christians who are very strong in their faith and some who are perceived as being very weak in their faith. And he says, we need to find a way for those two groups to be able to be together. And he says, you should care for one another. You should accept one another. You should welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you. And I love that there's this assumption. He said there's an assumption that God is working in people that you interact with, whether they're at church or in the community, that God can be at work in people's lives. Welcome them as God has welcomed you. And then we can encourage that, or we can be a part of moving in the direction that the Spirit is taking people toward Jesus, or we can kind of be getting in the way of that. Some people, I think, kind of carry their own little personal spiritual flame squirt bottle. You know, like, oh, a little spiritual flame, let me put that out real quick. Some of us, maybe unintentionally, just kind of blundering around, accidentally step on the little flame that's getting built in someone's life. You just accidentally step on it. That is like camping with my brothers. But what I see in this is that the apostle is trying to encourage us to say we should be people who encourage the work of the Spirit in the lives of the people around us. And so we actually take this, what we see of God, if you have an interaction with God, we should then welcome other people in that same way. It kind of strikes me similarly as we should love God in a certain way, and therefore we should love other people in that way. Seems familiar to me. Welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you. Just a few things about that. The first one is, I notice that it's so that God is glorified. It says, do it for the glory of God. That the whole point of this isn't that people would like you better. It's not that people would even like our church better. It's not just that somebody would have a nice experience. It's so that God would be glorified, that God would get the credit for it, that God would be more famous because of the way that God's people welcomed one another. C.S. Lewis, a writer in kind of middle of the 20th century, a famous guy, he wrote about this word glory at some point, and he makes a connection to the word glory. He says the root of the word glory is actually weight, that it's like this heavy weight. So then when something is glorious, it has this significance to it, like it weighs down, and you can feel that there's some mass that's there. And so what we're trying to do when we give God glory, or if we recognize God's glory, is we're coming to a point where we say, hey, this thing is more substantive than I thought before. I think that parallels a lot of our own personal lives as we've started to maybe grow spiritually. You'd say, hey, you know what, there's something a little more to this than I thought before. Maybe you grew up in church and you've been coming to church for a while, but at some point you kind of start to develop in your faith sense. You go, hey, there's a little more to this. Maybe my mom wasn't completely wrong about this. There's something to this that I didn't realize before. And even for those of us, if you have been spiritually alive for a long time, maybe you also grow in your appreciation for God's glory. You say, this is something that is weighty. There's something really important about this. We get this sense of God's importance. And that's the whole point. We're trying to welcome one another as Christ welcomed us for God's glory, so that we all begin to recognize rightly God's real weight and importance. So I just want to say, it's not going to be a huge step of faith. We oftentimes think for us to do something that brings God glory, it's going to be some big thing that we have to do. But what I'm asking, and I'm going to tell you ahead of time, what I'm asking for everybody is like a kind of a 2-degree shift. So if you picture kind of the direction that you've been navigating, and we just kind of change maybe 2 degrees. It's very little. But what does that? We are moving 2 degrees for the sake of welcoming someone else a bit better on purpose. To do it on purpose. It's not a huge commitment on your calendar, but it is purposeful. That we would say, I want to greet one another, welcome one another in this way. Well, he says, welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you. That begs the question, well, how has Christ welcomed you? What has Christ come, what has he done? And when we look at the Gospels, we see this Jesus who welcomed people in. Like I said, he doesn't give in on his convictions, but he also is radically welcoming. And as we take steps of faith, we experience that for ourselves, this radical welcome of God that transforms us. The first thing that Christ did, or the first way that Christ loved us, is that he loved us before we loved him. He took steps to us. He loved us when, the phrase I thought of this week, he loved us when we weren't done yet. We're not done yet. He still loves us. I'm not done yet. The person next to you, they're not done yet. We are not done yet. I am not done yet. And Christ loved us when we weren't done yet. He says, I want to do that. And there's a scripture, we love because he first loved us. And there's another scripture in Romans 5:8. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That means Christ died for people before they were done, before they were even really ready to accept him or to walk with him. So we've got room for people who aren't done yet. So if you encounter somebody in our service or in our community around us who seems like they're not done yet, you can say, that's the kind of person that I can still love in the way that Christ loved me. Because I was loved before I was done. I got news. I'm not done yet, right? So none of us is yet done. Can you say that? I think so. So the people around you are not done yet. And so what that means, hey, is that we are, in our community, we are welcoming to people who are just checking out the Christian faith. You don't have to be a follower of Jesus to be here, and you just can come, and you don't have a background in this, or maybe you've been away for a while and you're wanting to check it back out and to reinitiate, or maybe you're just trying to figure out what you believe. That is okay, because Christ welcomed people who were not done yet, and that's the way that we should be welcoming one another. So it changes in some ways some of our assumptions about people that we meet. I think that sometimes it's easy for us to assume that everybody is kind of on board the Jesus thing when they come here. And I just want to change that assumption. It's okay for people to come and not be done yet. We want to be welcoming to guests who are not yet followers of Jesus here. And it can be a safe place where people can explore faith and where people can figure out what they are thinking. Along with that, so Christ welcomed us when we weren't done yet. I think next, he also took the initiative toward us. He loved us first. We love because he first loved us. And I think that could mean for us to be able to take a first step towards somebody else. That is harder for some of us than for other people. I think I've gotten better at that over time. Some people, some people are barely waking up. You're just waking up right now as it is. But I will say some of us are more introverted, and they just come in real quiet. I have gone to churches before trying to keep a very low profile. And I've even been recognized by people. There was one time during COVID, I visited a church in Monterey because I was on vacation. It was during COVID, I had my mask on, and I had a hat low. It was kind of, and I sat there, and I was like, I'm just going to keep a low profile. I just want to pray a little. And the pastor recognized me. And it was a guy that I had met just like once before. He's like, Kurt? Hey, you're here. I'm like, ah. Some of us want to lay low. I understand. Some of us, to quote Lecrae, are coming in hot like fajitas. They're coming in hot like fajitas. Thank you. That was for one middle schooler right there. So some of us, you come in hot in the morning. You are ready to go. You are a party waiting to happen. Right. Yes. Amen. We've got a couple of those, and I'm so grateful for the party people. Not everybody is like that, but you are ready for a party all the time. And so what we're saying is that there are people who are trying to avoid sometimes saying hi, and sometimes it's still okay for somebody to take the initiative toward them. The party people really want it, and the non-party people will probably put up with it. So what we're doing is we are trying to say we want deeper relationships. This is something that our society is sorely lacking. I have been hearing reports that in our nation, more and more people have reported that they are lonely. And it is just something that is growing more and more every year. We are becoming a bit more like Europe. I lived in France for a long time, and Paris is one of the cities in the world where the most number of people live alone and feel very lonely. So one of the ways, this is actually a gift that we give to our world, is that we can be connected to one another. A gift that we can give to the world is to be connected to each other, to know people and be known by them. And I'll tell you, it is more inconvenient, but it is rich. So we take the initiative toward other people because Christ took the initiative toward us. We welcome others in the way that Christ welcomed us to the glory of God. So we do that because Christ is the one who took that initiative toward us. So maybe you meet up with people during the week. Maybe you invite somebody else to hang out. There was one church I went to when we first arrived back. I think I may have told you this one before. When we first arrived in the U.S. from France, it was 3 years ago. That first Sunday, I think I was still jet lagged, and we came into this church where there were some friends that went to this church already, and I was not coming in hot. I was coming in very quietly. I'm going to stay here real quietly, and I'm going to leave real quietly, because I don't want the conversations about, oh my gosh, you just moved from France? It's so interesting, right? So I was going to try to play it cool, right? And so they had a time of greeting during the service, and I turned around to the woman behind us, and she said, hi, my name's Kurt. Hi there, nice to meet you. Oh, you're new. She recognized that I was new. It was a pretty big church. I was pretty impressed, actually. She recognized that I was new. And she said, so did you just move to the area? Oh, yes, I did. She said, oh, why? Work. I'm trying to keep it cool, right? Where from? Doggone it. Yeah, it's kind of far away, so she wormed it out of us. And then as part of that, during that thing, she says, you're new here. You know what? She got a lot of info out of me. You live really close to me, right? She got a lot of info out of us. She said, would you come over for lunch this week? Can you come over to lunch on Thursday? It was a radical welcome. And you know what? From that moment, it actually went from me feeling like, okay, I don't want to be known, to, wait a minute. You're not just trying to get information out of me. You actually want to know me. It was beautiful. And I felt so loved by that. And our kids got to know them. It was wonderful, wonderful. So one of the ways that we can take an initiative toward other people is maybe to invite them to spend some time with us. You've got a friend group that goes out or something afterwards or during the week. Come be with us. So we would love for you to have those kind of deep relationships. And it's a cure for some of the loneliness that we experience in life. And we go through stuff, and we don't want to go through stuff alone. Even if you've been here for a long time, maybe that can be an initiative that you take toward other people. To hear people's story, find out what brought them to Simi Covenant. I'll say that's part of the reason why we wear name tags. I'll just say it for that. Maybe that was weird to you. It's okay. It's weird. I know my name. And I even give it out for free when people ask for it. But I wear my name tag in part because somebody who's new doesn't know me. And I hope in some way it does communicate, hey, I'm willing for you to call me by my name. There's an initiative toward relationship that's a part of that, I guess. So it also helps those of us I've been told by people here who have been sitting near someone at church for 10 years, and they said, I forgot that guy's name 7 years ago. So that is helpful also for that. So we want to show grace toward each other, and it's not required for that other person to believe the same things that we believe. It's not required that they think all the same ways that we think. But we take a step towards somebody when they're not done yet. We take a step towards somebody and take the initiative toward them. And we do that. I think it's an act of grace. But we are welcoming one another as Christ welcomed us. And we are actually living out the good news of the gospel. We're saying, God cares about you. So I do too, as much as I can pull off today. I care for you. I know that God wants you and God is doing something in your life. So I want to welcome you. Maybe even especially if we see things a little differently. So let's welcome one another as Christ has welcomed us for the glory of God. And it doesn't need to be a huge change. It doesn't need to be some new big thing that you sign up to do. I'm talking 2 degrees of change. And I would like to see that happen in every place in our community life. What does it mean for women's ministry to kind of 2 degrees change to say, we have more space for people who aren't yet followers of Jesus? What does it mean for your small group to have some space to say, a 2-degree change to say, how can we be a little more open toward people who aren't yet Jesus followers or aren't completely done yet? What does it mean for you in your youth group to have those kind of things to do? Because I want our church to be a place that is hospitable for people on a journey. People who are not yet followers of Jesus. I want our church to be a place that invites people who aren't yet Jesus followers, that feels like this is a good place. I would like to hear from you. I already said this a little bit, but I would love to hear from you. If you write on your Connect card, hey, this would be something, if this were tweaked a little bit, I would be more likely to be able to invite my grandkids or my friends or my neighbors. This thing would be better. Do not put different pastor. You think you're funny, but you're not, okay? So I want this to be a space that allows us to accompany people on their spiritual journey, right? That's what I wanted. When I came to church for the first time, I wanted people who were willing to not assume that I knew everything, but who are willing to accompany me on my spiritual journey. I still want that. I still want that. So what does that mean for us to do that? It may be some physical change about the way that we do things. It may just be a change in our hearts about the way that we do that. And every church can get better at that. So we're going to be aware of people who are visiting. We're aware that there are unchurched guests here. I want us to be able to invite people. I would love for us to pray for young people. I see the place right now, I will tell you, that has been the best outreach and going into new areas is our youth group. They're doing great. And I haven't seen Kylie yet this morning, but one of the people in our youth group, I'll just talk about Kylie. She's great. She's new to the faith, and she is somebody who walks around and it just says hello to everybody, and she's willing to kind of be that person who goes, let's find some kind of connection that we've got together. She has done that really, really well. So this stuff is going to stretch us. I got to tell you, it's going to stretch you as you think about your small group, as you think about your experience here in the morning. And maybe it's easier for us to think about, I'll just let the adults think about the youth group for a little bit. Our youth group does have a lot more middle schoolers than high schoolers. And that's a little hard on some of the high schoolers, is it not? Okay. And you know what? Maybe for a high schooler, we can think about. I'll pick on you first to say, what does it mean for as a high schooler in our group to say, maybe youth group isn't completely for me, but maybe my job is to have a gracious welcome to some of these younger kids who are coming, and I can be a mentor to them. For the middle schoolers, what does it mean for you to care well for each other and welcome some new kids into your circle? I think the same thing can happen to adults. I can't be with all the cool kids who are retired, right? And maybe you guys, you feel like sometimes, hey, you can take a step toward welcoming the newly balding like me. Was that too close to home? I'm sorry. Was that rude? Okay, sorry. Or not yet. Those who are not yet joining the club. Why are we doing this? We're doing it to glorify God. We want God to be glorified. In the end, we want God to be more famous. I want people to appreciate God, to give God the weight that God deserves. And so we want to do that. So maybe we need to take a first step. And maybe today is your first step. Maybe you're on a journey to walking with God. I wonder if today would be a first chance for you to take that step to say, Christ not only loved people well, he loved them well enough that he gave his life for us. That Christ was willing to die on our behalf so that we could come. And it's going to cost us to love other people well, and maybe we need to be willing to welcome like Christ loved, who is willing to die for others. So put aside everything that he deserved to help other people to take that step. I wonder if maybe you would take that step today. I think, what would be a way for me to welcome God's work in my life, and then also to welcome other people in the way that Christ has welcomed me? Let's pray. Let's pray together before we take the Lord's Supper. Lord, thank you for your work in the world, and that you welcomed me before I was even really ready. You welcomed me by taking initiative toward me, and you know that I'm not done yet, but you're still working in me. Lord, Father, maybe this is the first time for me to be able to even pray this. I want to welcome your work in my life. I want to take steps toward Christ. God, help all of us to appreciate who Christ is in a new way, to give new weight to that, so that it will transform the way that we love and care for other people. May all of that come to your glory, we pray in Christ's name. Amen.